most people don't ruin their retirement in their 20s. They ruin it in their 40s, not because they're reckless, not because they're irresponsible, but because they finally start feeling comfortable. The promotions have happened, the salary is decent, the house is bigger, the car is newer, the kids are growing, life looks stable from the outside, and that's exactly when the most expensive psychological trap begins. Because your 40s are not the middle of your financial life. They're the pivot point. What you do in this decade quietly compounds for 20, sometimes 30 years. Every decision gets magnified. Every delay becomes more expensive. Every upgrade becomes heavier. And the dangerous part, you won't feel the damage until it's almost irreversible. My name is Aiden, and today, we're going to break down why your 40s are the most financially sensitive decade of your life, not from a budgeting perspective, but from a psychological one. Because retirement isn't destroyed by math, it's destroyed by mindset. There's a strange thing that happens in your 40s. You stop thinking in terms of building, and start thinking in terms of maintaining. In your 20s and 30s, life feels like momentum. You're climbing, you're hustling, you're investing in yourself. You're trying to prove something, to your family, your peers, maybe even to yourself. But by your 40s, the external pressure softens. You've made it, at least compared to where you started. And that's where the comfort trap begins. Psychologists call this status quo bias, our natural tendency to prefer things to stay the same. Once your income feels good enough, your brain shifts into preservation mode. You optimize for stability instead of growth. The problem? Retirement math doesn't care about your comfort. Let's look at a simple example. Imagine you're 42 years old. You've saved $150,000 so far. That sounds respectable. You plan to retire at 65. If that money grows at 7% annually, it could become around $720,000 by retirement, without you adding another dollar. That's compound interest doing its job. But here's the uncomfortable truth. If you stop aggressively contributing in your 40s because life feels expensive, private school, vacations, home upgrades, you don't just lose the money you didn't invest. You lose the growth on that money for the next 20 plus years. Your 40s are the last decade where time is still working heavily in your favor. After 50, the runway shortens dramatically. But psychologically, your 40s feel like a time to relax. This is also when lifestyle inflation peaks. You don't buy a house. You upgrade the house. You don't take a vacation. You take the vacation you deserve. You don't drive a car. You drive the version that matches your identity. And here's the deeper issue, identity solidifies in your 40s. You're no longer experimenting with who you are. You're protecting who you believe you've become. So spending becomes symbolic. It's not just a bigger kitchen. It's proof you succeeded. It's not just a luxury SUV. It's confirmation you're doing better than your parents did. This is where retirement starts quietly bleeding. Not because you can't afford these upgrades today, but because you're trading invisible future freedom for visible present validation. And your brain will always choose visible rewards over invisible ones. That's called present bias, our tendency to overvalue immediate satisfaction and undervalue long-term gain. The tragedy, by the time retirement becomes emotionally real, your financial flexibility is gone. In your 40s, you still have leverage, time, earning power, energy, optionality, but comfort makes you underestimate how fragile that leverage is. The real danger of your 40s isn't overspending. It's believing you've already done enough. And that belief can cost you millions in long-term freedom. There's a myth that haunts your 40s. If I just earn more, I'll be fine. It sounds logical. After all, raises, promotions, and side hustles are within reach. You've invested years in your career. You should be able to outpace any financial mistake, right? Not necessarily. Psychologists call this the wealth illusion, the false sense that earning more automatically solves your problems. It doesn't account for how human behavior changes with income. Here's the pattern. You get a raise. Instead of investing it, you upgrade your lifestyle. You buy the bigger house, the luxury car, the better everything. The money disappears as quickly as it arrived. The cruel irony, as your earnings grow, your perceived needs grow even faster. This is called lifestyle creep, and it's surprisingly sneaky. Let's put it into perspective. Imagine someone earning $80,000 in their 30s, living frugally, saving 20% of their income. By the time they hit 40, they earn $120,000. But now, mortgage payments, new cars, private school tuition, everything scales up. Their savings rate might drop to 5%, even though they make 50% more. The result? Despite the higher income, their long-term retirement trajectory barely changes. Or worse, it stagnates. And here's the psychological twist, it feels like progress. The house is bigger, the vacations are better, the wardrobe is fancier, so your brain rewards you with dopamine, telling you everything is fine. Meanwhile, your future self is silently losing ground. What you need to realize is that earning more is a lever, not a solution. Your 40s are the decade where your financial behavior matters more than your income. Time is a multiplier, and behavior compounds faster than salary. The people who truly secure early or comfortable retirements in their 40s aren't those who earn the most. They're the ones who consciously control their behavior. They resist lifestyle inflation. They maximize investment contributions, even when they feel comfortable. They make small but consistent choices that multiply over 2 decades. Because here's the uncomfortable truth, by the time most people realize their habits are off track, they've already lost the leverage their 40s provided. And leverage in your 40s is more powerful than any raise you could get. There's another trap in your 40s that's rarely talked about. It's not spending. It's not earning. It's believing that retirement is still far away, so it can wait. Your 40s are deceptively long. Psychologically, it feels like you have decades to catch up. But the truth, time doesn't feel the same for money. Let me explain. Imagine your 20s as a sprint. Your first decade of compounding is explosive because everything is small. Your 30s are a climb, investments grow, careers accelerate. By the 40s, the climb flattens. But here's the danger, flattening feels safe. This is where mental models like opportunity cost become crucial. Every dollar you don't invest, every extra luxury you buy, every vacation you overextend for, costs you decades of growth. Here's an example. At 40, you have $200,000 saved. You plan to retire at 65, with a 7% growth rate. That could become about $900,000, just by maintaining your contributions. But imagine you justify skipping contributions for life experiences, or comfort. You cut your investment by $500 a month. The result? By 65, you're not at $900,000, you're closer to $550,000. That's lost optionality, the power to make choices freely in retirement. Optionality is more than money. It's freedom. Freedom to live where you want. Freedom to work on passion projects instead of obligations. Freedom to take risks without fear. The hardest part, most 40-somethings don't feel the pain yet. Financial stress is invisible because life still looks fine on the surface. This is why psychologists emphasize future self-continuity, the degree to which you feel connected to your future self. In your 20s, it's easier to imagine your 65-year-old self as distant, abstract, almost a stranger. By your 40s, you should feel closer to that self, but many people don't. They still make choices for the current me, not the future me. And that's why retirement failures in your 40s aren't dramatic. They're quiet, incremental. All self doesn't send invoices, it only suffers silently. By the time reality hits, maybe in your 50s or early 60s, the compounding damage is already baked in. There's something else that happens in your 40s, and it has nothing to do with spreadsheets. It's identity. In your 20s, you're building a life. In your 30s, you're expanding it. In your 40s, you're defending it. You've worked hard to construct an image, successful professional, reliable parent, homeowner, respected peer. And once that identity locks in, your financial decisions start protecting it. This is called identity-based decision-making. We act in ways that reinforce who we believe we are. If you see yourself as successful, you'll subconsciously make purchases that signal success. If you see yourself as responsible, you may avoid risk, even smart, calculated investment risk. If you see yourself as stable, you might resist career pivots that could dramatically increase your earning ceiling. The danger isn't just overspending, it's rigidity. Your 40s are often your highest earning decade, or at least the gateway to it. But they're also when people become most resistant to change. You stop negotiating aggressively. You stop switching industries. You stop asking, what else is possible? Because stability feels safer than expansion. But here's the paradox. The same decade that tempts you to play it safe is the last decade where bold, strategic moves can drastically alter your retirement outcome. Starting a business at 42, still powerful. Maxing out retirement accounts aggressively, still powerful. Relocating for a better opportunity, still powerful. Waiting until 55, the margin shrinks. There's also a biological layer to this. In your 40s, your brain prioritizes certainty. Neuroscience shows we become more risk-averse as responsibilities increase. Mortgages, kids, aging parents, So your brain whispers, don't rock the boat. But sometimes the boat needs to be redirected. Because here's the uncomfortable math. If you want financial freedom by 65, your 40s are not a maintenance decade. They're an acceleration decade. This is the last window where you likely have peak earning power. You still have 20 plus years of compounding ahead. You have enough life experience to make informed decisions. You have enough energy to course correct. Miss this window, and you're no longer optimizing. You're recovering. And recovery is always harder than acceleration. Most people won't remember their 40s as the decade that determined their retirement. There's no dramatic moment, no warning alarm, no financial cliff, just a series of small, reasonable decisions. Upgrade the house, delay the investment, take the nicer vacation, assume the next raise will fix everything. Individually, each choice feels harmless. Collectively, they define the next 30 years of your life. Your 40s are an invisible fork in the road. One path feels comfortable, stable, rewarding right now. The other feels slightly disciplined, slightly intentional, sometimes even restrictive. But one leads to options. The other leads to dependence. And here's the deeper truth. Retirement isn't about stopping work. It's about control. Control over your time. Control over your energy. Control over whether you have to work, or get to work. Your 40s determine how much control your 60s will have. So the real question isn't, am I doing okay right now? The real question is, am I building optionality, or just maintaining appearances? Because comfort is seductive, but freedom is intentional. If this made you rethink how you're approaching this decade, take a moment to reflect on where you're headed, and consider subscribing for more conversations like this. Not for motivation, for perspective. Because sometimes, the difference between comfort and freedom is just one decade of awareness.